CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success. Welcome back to CMMS Radio. We have two awesome humans on the screen. We've got Jennifer Zach and Tacoma Zach there with MentorAPM Asset Management. Why is that important? Well, if you don't know them, they're out here focused on certain aspects of the industry. They understand asset management. They have great technology for it, but it's not always about the technology. It's about what they know that they bring to the table for you. And we're all heading to SMRP. They are participating in and sponsoring and supporting CMMS Radio for what we call Friends of Nano, presented by CMMS Radio at SMRP. That's happening October 6th through 9th in Fort Worth, Texas. So, welcome, both of you, to CMMS Radio.
Thank you, Greg.
It is a delight to be here for round two.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, we got a lot to talk about, but we want to do this is more of a teaser to get people ready for you coming to SMRP.
Yep.
Before you head to SMRP, though, you've got a conference you're heading to. So I will say, Jennifer, if you don't mind, just give a little shout out on that, because this might drop just in time while you're there.
Oh, fantastic. So yeah, we tomorrow are getting on a plane to Chicago for WEFTech. WEFTech is pretty sure the biggest water industry event of the year in North America. So we're going to be joining probably 20,000 other people working in the water industry for WEFTech. So we're packing up, and then we'll be heading to SMRP the week after.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, for anybody that's heading to SMRP and you want to hook up with Jennifer and Tacoma, they're going to be at booth number 743, but also the booth I'm going to have set up, which is right next to and with NanoPrecise. They're also helping put this whole thing together, is where we're going to do the event for Friends of Nano, lots of cool recording, get lots of stories. And another thing I wanted to ask about, and this is for you, Tacoma, you have two speaking sessions at SMRP. The first one is Tuesday, October 7th. It's 9:45 a.m. to 10:45 a.m. That's Central Time, folks, because it's in Texas. And that's on Raise Your Standards, the value of ISO 55000 for your maintenance and reliability program. He's doing that along with John Helwig. And then on Wednesday, October 8th, 8:15 a.m. to 9:15 a.m., Tacoma, all by himself, is going to be talking about From Work Order to Capital Plan, a framework for unlocking value across the asset lifecycle. And that's the kind of stuff this whole conference is about. So Tacoma, can you give us just a little flavor on both of those sessions so that people know why they should be going to see you speak?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. If we talk about the first one there about ISO 55000, everybody knows it's an international standard. It's the standard which sort of outlines and structures what asset management is and what it's about. And so I've gotten together with John Helwig. We've done a number of projects over the years together. And so I think, it was good for us to put something together that says, here's what we've learned. Here's why asset management is important, whether you're industrial or you're municipal. The essence of it is what really brings value to it. And whether you check all the boxes or not, it's what it drives to which really brings value. And in every case where we have done what the standard encourages you to do, and I'll summarize it with this, is basically make risk-based decisions and get that alignment across the organization. There's a couple of other things too, but without those two things, you can't do it. You can't do asset management. But the value when you do that is striking. And so we're going to be talking about, some work that we've done together and some of the value that we've pulled together from some of those projects that we've done. I'll say this, and I think I mentioned this last time, when we did this for realsies, in a real utility context, we usually saved about 20% of our budget just, by doing a couple of fundamental things and trying to do them sort of well. And then the next talk on the next day, the next morning, that really sort of just puts that framework out there and it says, look, everybody's doing work orders. How do you connect the dots to making capital investment plans well? And so we're just going to take folks through that on some of the things to consider. You got to understand what's critical. You got to understand what's risk and what those two are used for. They're not used for the same things, and how you can easily do those things in the field. We've got some great tech for it. We're not going to be showcasing it at that point. Come to the booth to see that, where we have clear and far and away the best, newest. There's nothing like it on the market technology for data acquisition all across any type of asset. So we're basically going to be connecting the dots from simple work orders, doesn't matter if GIS or vertical, all the way through to how to make those best capital plans and what data to use and what data is going to be driving your maintenance, not your capital.
So we basically have kind of like this 4-part opportunity. We've got 2 different speaking sessions that are different, but play in the same space and will really help people. Then you've got the booth where you can go, and depending on what Tacoma's doing, he might be there, but Jennifer's definitely going to be there to talk to you, understand you, and do all that fun stuff. And then you got the 4th component where you're going to come over and hang out with me. I'm going to try to hang out at your booth too. But Jennifer, I wanted to ask you, it's a silly question, but when Tacoma talks about this, and he's been on before as well, and we know his long history of being in these environments, actually doing the work, getting the results. Do you just say, talk to Tacoma, or are you at this point now where you're starting to not only see it, but you can get deep into these conversations as well? I just have never asked you that direct question.
100%. No, so we started out in the maintenance reliability space together, coming up on 13, 14 years ago. And I will tell you, my first trip out to a maintenance and reliability conference, I was like, oh my goodness, this is tough. But in those years, I have learned so much. And now I'm a little bit of a geek myself. Wouldn't call myself an engineer. But no, I would love to get into it. Would love to chat about asset management. I've had the opportunity to serve on the board of the Asset Leadership Network, contribute to TC 251, and be a part of the asset management universe. And so one of my secret sauces is really helping translate, what is all this heady stuff that we're talking about into accessible language. And so I'm really excited to talk to everybody in the booth at SMRP. One of our key themes that we want to stress and emphasize is prioritization. Particularly in our work with public entities, public municipalities, but same for industrial. Nobody has enough time, money, effort, people to do everything that could and should be done. And so you really have to get a laser focus on, where am I going to apply my attention? Where am I at risk? What are my critical assets? And so that's something that's really baked into the MentorAPM platform, that idea of prioritization and being able to answer the question, am I even doing the right work in the first place? Any CMMS, Greg, is going to make you feel better because you're going to be more organized. And so instead of always reacting and being scattered, you're going to be more organized. But not every CMMS can answer that question, am I doing the right work? So you can get way more organized and way more optimized doing the things that don't really matter. And so that's one of the things we love to talk to people about. We're going to help you know that when you send your work orders out for the day, you're working on the most important ones.
I love that, because as we all take in information, I also love the fact that over this time period, you're getting more and more knowledge, and it's built differently. The way you take it in through the interactions, not only learning from Tacoma, but from your clients, getting in the client environments, being at all the different trade shows. Maintenance people want to help other maintenance people, even if they're just starting out, somewhere mid-journey. They want to get in conversations, which is one of the best things about a conference like this one that we're going to. I want to bring it back to Tacoma.
Oh, sure.
And the question I had before you build on that is, you mentioned already the basic fundamentals, and I was thinking about this prioritization. It's one of the more challenging things for anyone to do, because they lack the time, the bandwidth, and resources, if you will, to dig in and do that, and they don't know where to start. So I think that's part of the basic fundamentals that people somehow easily neglect. So go ahead. You had something to say, and
Oh, no, no. It's in keeping with what you're saying. I just wanted to sort of comment, Jen being able to talk about these things. What we do this 101 course with any customer who wants us to do this with them. Asset management is not confusing. It is not some obfuscated, sort of body of knowledge that only a few sacrosanct few people have. It is easily digestible and is easily accessible to anybody. In fact, anybody should be able to understand it because it involves finance people, purchasing people, et cetera. It's a much larger context. The details of some of the stuff that you guys were just talking about, yeah, that's for the subject matter experts, like you and me, the ones who maintenance guys or reliability ones or who understand failure modes and blah, blah, blah. Not everybody needs to understand that. There's a few select people in that organization that should, and we bring that. But how the pieces fit together, the simple concepts of know what's the most important, that's what you should focus on. Well, that's just business knowledge or logic and knowledge, right? So it's actually a bit of a business framework. Asset management actually is, right? So it's accessible to anybody. You don't have to be an engineer or a tech weenie about these things. You can understand, no, I got to do a few certain things and the outcomes will be better and we're going to have alignment. And that's up to, it doesn't matter whether you're an English professor or you're an engineer, makes no difference, right? So as far as, now, what was the other question again? It was about prioritization, right?
Well, I think, and that's what's good about this. It's fun. We want to keep it, the prioritization and doing those right things that are grounded in basic fundamentals, fundamental excellence, bandwidth, and where to start. It's not that people don't want to do it, but it's a crushing environment that they're in.
Right. So here's because we did this in a for-profit environment where we had to satisfy shareholders, we had to satisfy customers, we came up with an approach that was extremely quick, that started from the top down. And some folks who listen to this, they might disagree. A lot of people start at the asset level, and we think that's going to be a big, heavy lift. So what we do instead is, and what we recommend is, organize your assets according to systems, like RCM, Reliability Center Maintenance would. And then you've got maybe a 10th, maybe even less, maybe a 20th of the number of things to review. And it's pretty easy then to sort of figure out, okay, if this thing goes sideways, how many ways has it gone sideways on us in the past that makes a difference to us? And you put a couple of subject matter experts in the room, meaning a guy who's head of maintenance or has been there a long time, maybe a guy who's a part of operations, who's been there for a long time, people with history, internal knowledge, right? Everybody loves to talk and share what they know. So this is actually a nice thing. You throw some donuts in there, you throw some coffee in there, and then you have a discussion that says, well, here's our chemical delivery system, or here's our clarifier, or here's our whatever it ends up being. Could be a fluidized bed reactor, whatever. And you start talking about it in nice enough packages, manageable ones. You say, okay, what are the ways in which this thing's gone sideways? How has it kicked us in the teeth over the last 10 years? Blah, blah, blah. A couple of things in the categories you care about. Like we care about staff safety, we care about environmental, we care about regulations, those standard kind of things, and whatever else you might care about. And you record the stuff. Now we have a fabulous way of recording things and for follow-up and documentation, organizes everything real nice. But we found that when we took that top-down approach, we were able to identify which systems were important, 10% of them, maybe 15%. The rest are not that important, which means that if the assets, don't work so well in those, all hell doesn't break loose. But that 10, 15% that does, that's where you focus your next bit of effort. So instead of doing 100% of the work, now you've whittled it down to maybe 30% of the work, and you've accomplished 80% of the needed exercise and where to focus. That's what we found was so valuable and so enlightening for not only for us, where we had to put money against it, but for the customers, the aha moments, and they're listened to. They're the ones who usually complain, going like, nobody listens to me at this facility. Well, they're going to be the ones in the room then making the case for what went wrong and why it was bad. And then that goes to management. So
yeah, and
it's very effective.
What's nice about the way you had explained it, in case anybody missed it, is when you're looking at this top-down approach to doing that, rather than asset up, which maybe or maybe not is bottom up, you have the people in the room that are actually on the plant floor, on
Yep.
the shop floor,
Yep.
in the facilities, working with these machines. You've got maybe a machine whisperer and all that. So you're not actually leaving out the players that are actually there getting it done. So I want everybody to know that when Tacoma is saying top down, he's working at the overarching business case downward. And then when you narrow in on that, let's say 30% criticality of assets and equipment that could cause actual high impact, meaning negative impact downtime, and then you can focus 100% of your effort on there, and you can start to get 80+% benefit. You're creating more availability. Now everybody's moving in the right way, and that's what team sports is all about. In other words, what you're saying is everybody owns this concept of reliability, and everybody's got a role, everybody's got something to contribute. They just need some structure and framework to get it dialed in. Now, Jennifer.
Oh, no, I got to add one more thing before you go anywhere else, because it's super important.
All right.
Everyone talks about reliability. If you're going to spend effort on making some things reliable, wouldn't you want to do it on the stuff that can really kick you in the teeth?
Yes.
That's the part you should really focus on making reliable first. Not saying you have to avoid and never do the other stuff, but start at the most important stuff and work your way down the list. The gains are immediate.
Yeah. So Jen, I used to call that in like the facilities management world or general maintenance management world, the big rocks. The things are the most important, the things that are most impactful, and the things that are constantly screwing up your day to get a bunch of this other stuff done. It doesn't mean you're not going to get to that. So how often do you see when you're engaged with people, whether it's at a booth or you're in a facility or something like that, that those aha moments Tacoma was talking about, you're watching people and they're flashing. You can kind of recognize it at this point.
Oh yeah. I think, we often know a lot of the things that are important, but we are surprised by many that we were overlooking. And then we also get easily distracted by things that make something seem important or seem unimportant. So something really, really expensive could be assumed to be very, very important. A very expensive asset might be getting a lot of attention, but if it's not actually a critical asset to your level of service or production, just because it's expensive doesn't mean it's critical. Likewise, something small and insignificant could be easily overlooked because it's not recognized for how critical it is. And so when you start to have that conversation and then broaden the idea of risk to multiple variables, what is the risk to safety? What is the risk to production? What are my environmental obligations? What are my regulatory obligations? If I have a spill, what is that going to cost me? That does start to get very overwhelming. But when we can show that we can put this all together in a way that makes sense and isn't hard to do, we definitely see some light bulbs go off. And this is just one aspect of our whole platform. We kind of look a little bit at the criticality analysis, criticality and analyzer as sitting at the center of it to drive prioritization two ways. When you know what's really important and understand various aspects of risk, you're able to identify the priority work and maintenance that needs to be done tomorrow. But then you're also able to get a view up into your capital plan. This piece, this asset over here, it's going to need to be replaced, and you're going to have a business case against that. And so it's prioritization across the life cycle, and it's a whole view to everything across your portfolio.
All of this, while you were describing it and you were talking about I was asking about the light bulb and aha moments that come up as you were describing it. I wanted to say something that people might not like it, but I'm thinking in my mind, this is why CFOs, I'm not saying all of them, but why many CFOs shouldn't be making the decisions on what's critical or not, because they see things based on investment and risk of those dollars that are invested, and they might not see everything. And why should we expect them to, unless they're spending some time out on the plant floor and getting involved in learning some of this stuff themselves, not to be experts. But then the other thing, the thing that I think is a little more holistic, wholesome, and good to say is that what you're both saying is context is what matters most when you're looking at why you're doing what you're doing. In other words, is it going to be effective and impactful? And how can we make that efficient so that we have that? Because that becomes the next layer of your foundation. And I think this is going to leave a lot of open conversation, questions, and interest for people when they're at SMRP to connect with you and talk about it. I'm going to want to do the same when we get you over on the podcast. But considering it's Friday afternoon, you got to get ready for your trip over to Chicago.
But wait, I got to add something. An aha moment.
Bring it.
Okay, the aha moment. These were our own eyes. So we ran a facility for 18 years inside an oil refinery. We thought we knew everything about this. We did this analysis the way we had described. And we thought we had like 30 days to fail gracefully and bring in extra equipment and blah, blah, blah. We found out that we could go down in 8 hours or less. And because we had done this in this structured way, not only was it an aha moment to us, like shame on us after 18 years, we didn't know this. The structure brought it out. But because it was done in the context of a number of subject matter experts from our company and the refinery, I got approval for a capital expense that afternoon because the senior management or executive management, I should say, they recognized the process and we had already achieved a commitment from them that the outcomes were going to be of such a nature that they would listen to them. They would agree with them because they had an input into the factors that went into what we would gauge it all against. What they thought was important, well, the revenue was important, environment was important, customer satisfaction, et cetera. So whatever it is that you're gauging it again, it becomes a change management vehicle as well, because you're able to provide the answers to senior management and they'll listen.
Yeah, I like it. It's a good, and this is why I love running the episodes like this, because we can dart around and we're not looking for perfection. We're looking to inspire people to think and to be more interested or curious about what's possible. And I like having people that can help get people on the right track. I don't ever make it about selling software. I make it about industry. Let's get talking about it. Let's start conversations. And that's what we're all going to do when we're down there in Fort Worth. And of course, you guys are going to be doing that in Chicago as well. I want to thank you both, Jennifer and Tacoma Zach, for being here with me on CMMS Radio.
Fun as always. You're
on mute.
I'll speak for Jen. It was fun as always and a pleasure on both of our behalfs, because Jen, your microphone's still not working.
Those gremlins.
She's smiling
from
a lot,
yesterday.
though. She's smiling.
That's all that matters. Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit cmmsradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.